Talkin' Pop Podcast Movie Review Edition. Been a hot minute since we've done one of these. And I do feel like today is going to be a very compelling listen and episode for anyone who's watching, because we're going to talk about Black Adam. One of us liked it, one of us didn't. And that always makes because if it was just you and I sitting and agreeing the entire time, that's boring.
Agreed. I will say, it's been, we had a really busy summer. So we took a bit of a hiatus. We've been back with a couple episodes, but I don't know, Rob, something about having a DC movie to review and also a Marvel trailer to talk about all just feels right in the world today on the Talkin' Pop podcast.
The whole reason why we started this thing was to talk about these particular topics. So I'm actually going to kick it over to you. We'll start by discussing the new trailer, or the first trailer rather, for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So a fantastic trailer. I think we've been pretty vocal on this pod over the last little while about how Marvel is just leaving us. It's just leaving us feeling like not the most satisfied. And so when you get a trailer like this that sort of harkens back to the glory days of the MCU, it's exciting. It's the same thing we've been saying about the Wakanda Forever trailer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kick it over to you and just say, what was your main takeaway, your impression, your feelings after watching the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer?
Well, you teed it up quite nicely for me there, Rob, because I think, we can all say that Phase 4 has been a little lackluster. And even, I say we all say, maybe there's people who loved it, but I think if just generally speaking, there's been not as much, absolute love for everything that's come out in Phase 4 like there's been in the past. So, this movie is the official kickoff of Phase 5. And I think, from what I'm seeing, exactly what you said, this feels like the Marvel that we love. There's a good baddie that actually feels like a real threat, and we know is a real threat, just given, what Phase 5 and 6 we've already been told is going to happen, and or what we can look forward to, I should say. And yeah, I just, what I also said to my husband as I was watching the trailer was, I like that this is not taking place, or at least from what we saw, it doesn't look like it's taking place on Earth.
No, it looks like most of the movie is in the quantum realm.
Exactly. And so I think that's actually going to help, because some of what I've felt for some of the movies and TV shows in Phase 4 is either the stakes feel really low, or they feel really high, and you're kind of like Eternals, and you're like, where the hell is everybody else? If this type of thing was happening, where the hell is everybody else? Whereas this makes a lot of sense. There's nobody else there to help Scott Lang and, the Wasp and all the, the cast of characters around them. So the stakes feel a little higher, I think. So that was my main takeaway. I'm happy that this is taking place in the quantum realm. It feels like a classic MCU trailer at the very least. Hopefully the movie doesn't disappoint on that promise. And I think, hoping that this is a good start to Phase 5, and we can look back at Phase 4 and say, those were post-Endgame growing pains.
I think this is going to be the coming out party for Kang the Conqueror. We met He Who Remains at the end of Loki.
Yep.
But this is when we're actually going to meet Kang the Conqueror, and he's going to establish himself as the big bad as we head into Phases 5 and 6. That has me excited. It has kind of like a Star Warsy feel to it.
Oh, for sure. They go there's the scene, very quick shot, it almost looks like they're in the cantina.
Yeah.
There's definitely a few shots like that. It also gives me a little bit of Guardians, yes. We get the very quick shot of Bill Murray and the way that he looks like he walked off the set of Guardians to me. So yeah, there's a little mix of all the sort of Disney properties in there, I suppose.
Absolutely. I don't really have much more to add other than the fact that, yeah, we see Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet Van Dyne. We see Michael Douglas Hank Pym. We see Evangeline Lilly again as Hope Van Dyne. So the whole cast and crew is back, and we're just going to have to sit and wait. This is one that I'm really looking forward to.
Me too. And I think, just to kind of cap it off, like, I think historically, I who doesn't love Paul Rudd? Like, he's one of the most likable people on the planet. But let's be honest, Ant-Man movies have not been the ones that have been the tentpole main event films, and this one feels like they're giving him a little bit more of that clout.
It does. It has. Yeah. It feels. Now, do you think Ant-Man 1 was fine? Ant-Man and the Wasp was not. Do you think this movie feels bigger because of sort of the lackluster stuff in Phase 4? Or do you think it's just like, no, Ant-Man went to another level in Avengers Endgame, so now this is just every Ant-Man movie going forward will feel like a great event like this?
I think it's a couple of reasons. One is for what you said. This is Kang's coming out party. So if we're going to introduce the villain that's going to take us through to the next Avengers movie, we're gonna make it a little bit more of a main event. And yeah, I would say anybody who's a part of the, and I'm sort of using this term loosely because obviously it grew over time, but sort of the original cast, anybody who was sort of in the Endgame stable, so to speak, I think those movies, and maybe that's partly subjective of like what we're bringing to those movies with all the, like, you know what I mean? Like, us as viewers are bringing all the memories of what was to those movies. So I think, I don't know, there's something about like this, Wakanda Forever. I wasn't a big Thor Love and Thunder fan, but that movie felt more like still in the realm of an MCU movie, other than the fact that it was a little silly. But yeah, I think anyone in that original group, for some reason, it always feels a little bigger. It feels a little bit more like a main event.
All right, let's move on to why we've reconvened today and talk about the latest release from DC and Dwayne Johnson, Black Adam. This hit theaters last weekend. It was Dwayne Johnson's highest opening weekend ever in his career. That surprised me.
Yeah, I would say that too. Think about some of his, like, some of the comedic movies he's been in, some
and
of
the Fast and the Furious movies, and like
Jumanji.
Yeah, so I was surprised to hear that. Okay, so as I said off the top, I liked this movie. You did not.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to go first with my thoughts and opinions on it and tell you what I liked about it, and then I will also share, because I liked it. I didn't love it. There were things about it that I just kind of, I didn't love. I'll put it that way. So first and foremost, I thought this movie was pretty fun. I liked the more, one of the things I'm seeing, it's getting a lot of negative critical reviews and a lot of positive audience reviews. One of the things that I'm seeing people sort of go at it for is Dwayne Johnson's sort of muted performance as Teth Adam.
Yes.
And I just don't think that's fair. One, I liked that he sort of took that approach and didn't spend the whole movie chewing the scenery and, as Brad would say, and being the Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's rare that we see Dwayne Johnson in a role where he is not almost winking at the camera.
Yep.
With sort of how he kind of goes about things. I liked that. I loved the Justice Society of America. I loved them. I thought Aldous Hodge and as Hawkman and Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate were both fantastic. And I thought having Atom Smasher and Cyclone as sort of not the focal points of the team, but sort of there as like Atom Smasher in particular as the comedic relief, I thought was really good. They made, quite honestly, they made the movie for me. Like, Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate was far and away the best part of this movie. Far and away. From his performance to how Dr. Fate looked to just everything about him I thought was fantastic. I liked sort of the dichotomy between Atom Smasher and Teth Adam. No, not Atom Smasher, excuse me. Hawkman and Teth Adam, in the sense that like Hawkman is the hero technically, and Teth Adam is the villain, but there's the sort of role reversal in that you're cheering for the anti-hero and you're sort of annoyed by the actual hero.
Right.
I was a bit confused about the JSA's association with Amanda Waller. Amanda Waller's sort of role in the greater DC is like confusing me. She's sort of like Nick Fury, but like an asshole version of Nick Fury. And it's like, are you good or are you evil? Because on the one hand, you've got the Suicide Squad. On the other hand, you're sending the Justice Society of America on missions, which I thought was kind of confusing.
Yeah.
I thought I liked how this movie just moved at a furious pace. It didn't let up for 1 second. I didn't look down at my phone or anything the entire time. I was completely just like trying to keep up with what was going on. I thought that the comedic parts, aside from one character in particular, who when we get to the stuff that I didn't like, I will hit on that. I thought the comedy all worked for me except for that one character. I went into this movie with the lowest of expectations. Part of that I blame on Marvel, because I think I'm kind of marveled out, to be honest with you. Yeah. I just think this year for Marvel has not been great, that I'm just sort of tired of Marvel. So I went in being like, I hope this is a good DC movie. There was all this press leading into it about like how The Rock is like has a lot of stroke and a lot of power within Warner Brothers. They announced week of all these new projects they're doing. Like Matt Reeves is building out his Batman universe again, and
villain universe,
yeah,
top secret project from James Gunn, and
and there's a certain cameo at the end of this movie, which we'll talk about in a minute, that there's another project in the works for DC. So a lot of good vibes around DC right now. Now, let's talk about the stuff that I didn't like. I did not like Amon, the young boy. And I'm not going to get on the actor who played him. I thought the way it was written with the just Thor Love and Thunder levels of silly comedy once Teth Adam and him got together. Some of it was funny and worked at like the tell them the man in black sent you ended up working out at the end.
Yeah.
Was good, but just
that one did pay off. I'll give it that. Yep.
Yes, the relentless comedy off the top was just the first 30 minutes of this movie. I was like, oh no, like this is not going the way I wanted it to go. Basically until the JSA showed up, I was like, this isn't The main thing I didn't like about this movie, though, it is very Snyder looking. It looks like this movie is a Zack Snyder movie. And I'm talking specifically like aesthetic wise, like this. And it's like, are we trying to get away from this, or are we leaning back into it? Because there were a couple moments in this that looked like they were out of 300, especially the early Kondak stuff and the slow-mo, like just the overdone slow-mo. That was the kind of thing where it's like, can we just shed this Zack Snyder influence that still just sort of looms over all this stuff? And that for me was the biggest thing about this movie that I didn't really like. I'll turn it over to you now, and you can talk about your opinion of it. I thought, for the most part, it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I think my expectations were so low going into this that this movie had nowhere to go but up.
Right. Well, let me start by saying this, that you know, from many, many, many years of you subjecting me to watching WWE wrestling, I am a huge Dwayne Johnson fan. I love him. I think the way he carries himself in the media And, we're from Toronto. He was a beauty showing up to the Toronto Maple Leafs game. Like, I think he is such a great presence, in film and television. So I will say that, yes, spoiler alert, I didn't like this movie, but am I walking out of it with sort of, I don't know, some the frustration that I normally do with some of these movies? I'm going to say no, because I like Dwayne Johnson and I like how much he cared about this movie. So I'm really walking out here's my review, folks. It wasn't my cup of tea. That's really what it is. And it's for a couple of reasons. One is exactly to what you just said. He went on the press tour, and what he said, and I know that this was him promoting the movie and getting people excited and, teasing the post-credit. But he kept saying this is a new era of the DC universe. That was what he kept saying. And this felt like every other DC movie that we've seen, aesthetically, storytelling, where it's just a little messy, where there's mass destruction of where it's just
how many
he's the
Kondakians
exactly died. He's the protector of Kondak, and it's whoa, it's just, and I get for anyone who's going to light me up in the comments, I get that in DC we're playing with different rules. We're playing with gods, and we're playing with, so I get that the fighting and all of that is going to be a little bit more powerful and a little bit more whatever, but it just still, there wasn't, I wanted to believe Dwayne and to leave, and even if I didn't like the movie, I wanted to at least leave to say okay, I can see where they're going, but to me it's they're just kind of leaning back into what was. So that didn't quite work for me. As someone hoping to see something a little different. The other thing I didn't love about it was I didn't actually love. I'm appreciative of the quicker moving pace of the movie. And I am in the camp of people that says we don't need to do the perfectly crafted origin story anymore. I think as viewers we've evolved beyond needing that. I do think at times, though, we would have benefited from a more linear storytelling structure. And why I say that is clearly the motivation behind Teth Adam caring for this mother and son is motivated by the death of his own wife and child. And we as viewers, even though you and I know that as people who know a little bit of the comic story, that was not put in front of us until the
misdirect. Yeah, until the misdirect.
And so I think that adds to the frustration of that character, of that silly kid cracking jokes, because it's why? What do we do? Who cares? Who cares about this kid? So I think we would have benefited from understanding his motivation and his soft spot for these two a little more, to understand why we that was sort of why he saved that woman and why, those things played out the way they did. Excuse me. The last thing that I'm going to say, there's other issues I have with this movie, but not to beat a dead horse. The last thing I'm going to say, it's subjective, but it is an issue that I'm having with a lot of DC movies. It was in Justice League. It's here. I am tired, Rob. I am tired of there being an ancient relic, an ancient MacGuffin, buried deep under the ground that's going to release a hell monster. I'm tired of that story. We saw it with Steppenwolf. It wasn't quite it's
you're referring to the Crown of Sabak.
The Crown of Sabak, and then we've got the mother boxes, and I'm enough. I want to see, if we had to do it in this movie, fine. But I am ready for what they're promising us next, which is not that. Let's go God versus God, or let's go like, you know, I want to see that, you know, we're talking, I'm sorry, spoilers, people, Man of Steel 2. I want to see him face off against Lex Luthor. I am done with the ancient relic MacGuffin.
We'll talk about that. Yeah. Lex Luthor or some sort of like vintage superhero villain like Brainiac.
Exactly.
Or something.
Like I just like, and then like what ultimately comes from the ancient relic MacGuffin is the bland AF villain who is, you know, taken over.
So Ishmael, also known as Jafar from the live action Aladdin.
Okay. Yeah, yes. All right. Yes. He looked familiar.
The second because kind of right off the bat, they're sort of hinting like, oh, Ishmael is not who he says he is. And then right away, I'm like, Ishmael's going to get the crown of Sabak, and then he's going to become Sabak's champion and that sort of thing. And it's like, that was really predictable. Like, you knew where that was going.
They didn't even try and hide it, Rob. Like that first scene, like, and I actually give them credit for that. His eyes are shifting and like all that, like they didn't try and hide it. And then you go like later on in the story and they do the flashback to Teth Adam coming in and cranking the guy's neck, and it's the same actor. Like, so it was like, okay, like you knew where this was all going. I'm tired of the boring villain born out of ancient relic MacGuffin.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think but again, the story is set up in such a way that like the movie is really about the JSA trying to bring in Teth Adam, and then eventually
they got to fight something.
They got to fight. They all got to team up and fight somebody. And so since we're going to spend so much time, it's the same formula as Batman v Superman. That movie is about those two fighting, and then we have to bring in Doomsday so they can all team up, a formidable monster type villain that they can all team up and fight. And yes, it was very
so
it's very Can I give you an opinion on the DC as gods thing?
Yep.
I've decided it's not. I think we're so preconditioned to sort of the Marvel way in that you have these superpowered beings that are more down to earth, I guess, than the DC characters. And the DC characters they're godlike. Mm-hmm. And I've decided not to get off this movie, but I've decided as long as you leave Batman out of that, I'm fine with it. Like it's okay if you want to tell gods fighting gods stories. Just leave Batman out of it. That's my sort of opinion on the greater DC.
But to go back actually to the parts of the movie that I did like, because it wasn't all bad. Like, so first of all, I will say Pierce Brosnan, like, incredible. Like this is why you bring in an actor like that, because he just brings like that could have been such a dry performance and it could have just been very by the numbers, and you bring in a guy like that who's got some gravitas, and it just, literally the way he wakes up from his vision, like you can sense the pain and the turmoil in him. So at the end when he says like, you know, it's a blessing and a curse, you feel that?
Yes. I love it when he takes his helmet off and he just is like so suave in his Pierce Brosnan, James Bond kind of walk that it's just so seamless. That I'm seeing a lot of stuff online about the comparisons between Dr. Fate and Doctor Strange, and how Dr. Fate is like 20 years older than Doctor Strange. So there's a lot to the general public. They're going into watching that movie going, oh, this is just a Doctor Strange ripoff. It's actually the other way around. And I think that's why you cast a guy like Pierce Brosnan, because the second you see him, you're taking him seriously.
Yeah, for sure. But I also, to kind of tie back in the gods conversation we were just having, what I liked about the JSA was it actually, and God, people are going to light me up, it reminded me of the Avengers in the sense that these are four people who felt on equal footing in their team, in their teamwork. And so like that worked for me. And I think that's like and it's not an easy task. I'm not sitting here pretending I have the answers. That's going to be the eternal struggle with the Black Adams and Supermans of the universe, because it's like they're it's always going to be, well, why aren't they just coming in and Mortal Kombat fatalitying the guy in half? Like, you know what I mean? I enjoyed the scenes with the JSA because I believed that the four of them were working together and the chemistry was there. So
the chemistry between Aldous Hodge and Pierce Brosnan was like, I believe that those two guys had been fighting crime together for years.
Yeah. No. And I think, and I actually think, you know, and I've already expressed my love for Dwayne Johnson, but you look at a performance like Pierce Brosnan's, and I gotta say, like, I'm not sure, and I said this to you over text, I'm gonna flesh it out a little more here. I'm not sure Dwayne is a leading man. Like, he is so charismatic. He obviously looks the part. I think I loved the scenes where it was more like hand-to-hand combat fighting, and he was, but I don't know. I know that he's an anti-hero, so I think they
went I think they went too far in that direction. I think they really focused, because at the end of the day, Teth Adam is a villain. Like, he is Shazam's greatest foe.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that they focused a lot on not making him too likable.
Yeah.
Like, and to the point that they kind of bashed you over the head about it. Like, Hawkman being like, heroes don't kill people, and him being like, well, I do. Like, just so...
Well, and then there was...
So, like, this is not a total good guy.
Yeah, and then there was the line at the end where the mom was like, well, see, because he's dark, he can do things that you guys can't do. And it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, those,
not my favorite characters. Yeah. But, like...
No.
Okay.
Adriana and Amon, not my favorite characters either.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, like I didn't walk out there being like, this was garbage, I hated it. But it felt like, to me, it felt a little bit same old DC, and there were just too many things that they've done before, like the ancient...
So let's get into it. So Dwayne Johnson did tease ahead of time that the future of the DC universe was going to change, and it was a new chapter.
Yeah.
We get to the post-credit scene where he is now known as Black Adam, after ripping Sabak in half and saying, tell them the man in black sent you.
Yes, and the classic line, what should we call you?
Yeah, yes. And Amanda Waller, basically through some sort of drone-like creature thing, machine, basically says, if you don't want to be in my super prison, that's fine, but if you leave Kahndaq, I'm coming for you, basically.
Yeah.
And he says, there's no one in this world who can stop me. And she says, I can send people who aren't from this planet to stop you. And lo and behold, in walks Henry Cavill with a Superman curl, a much brighter suit, and a muted version of the John Williams classic Superman music playing in the back. So, first of all, with this scene in general, I think a lot of people, myself at first, kind of took away, it's like, why is Superman working with Amanda Waller?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the case. I think Amanda Waller is kind of doing her thing, being like, you're a superpower being, so that means you play by my rules, because that's sort of what Amanda Waller does. And I think Superman, it's sort of implied that he's been off-world, kind of shows up and is like, I'm here. We need to talk. So I think we're going to get it's already, as we alluded to earlier, a Man of Steel 2 is in production. I think we are going to get a Daredevil Born Again-esque treatment for Henry Cavill's Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a soft reboot of some sort.
I mean, if I'm going to go back to Dwayne for a second. If I'm going to give him some credit, while there were things about the movie I didn't like, what he delivered on, and I keep, I know there was a director of this movie, there were more people involved than him, but I keep going back to him because, you know, in the media, they're calling him the Kevin Feige of DC right now. So I'm giving him the ownership of this. What he did get right in this movie, and then by extension, the post-credit scene, was all those characters felt like those characters. Like, yes. That was that few seconds of Superman, the way he looked and the way that he spoke. Like, I was like, I think, are they going to do it? Like, are they going to give us the right characterization of this character finally?
Yep.
Because that is one thing I will say that they did well in this movie. Those characters all felt like that felt like Dr. Fate, that felt like Black Adam, that felt like Hawkman, that felt like Superman.
And looked like him. And like I said, just the little things that are sort of hinting and like sort of clues that they are soft rebooting this. Like I said, the curl in the hair. The extremely bright red and yellow symbol on his chest. The John Williams score, not the Hans Zimmer score.
Yeah.
And we can argue all we want about, like, is that the right thing? Is that whatever? It's like, no, I don't care. That score is one of the most iconic movie scores of all time. It belongs with that character. I don't care who's playing him. And I like the Hans Zimmer score from Man of Steel, but I'm all good with it. This also goes to show that there was smoke to those rumors around San Diego Comic-Con that Henry Cavill was going to show up, and it's been confirmed that it wasn't done yet, and these conversations were going on in the back, and they shot this on Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
After the movie was essentially in the can, they went back and reshot this. And The Rock's wife is Henry Cavill's representative.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So there's symmetry there. And I'm honestly, can I just say, I've said so many times on this podcast, I am a Superman stan. I always have been. I always will be. I'm so happy for Henry Cavill. There are some people who don't like Henry Cavill and didn't like his Superman. I refuse to pass judgment on Henry Cavill until he is given proper Superman material. If they make a proper Superman movie and Henry Cavill just doesn't do it for me, I will come on here and say, listen, he got his shot to do it right. It didn't work. But the characterization of Superman in Man of Steel, and then gets his sequel to Man of Steel completely hijacked, and the characterization in the sequel by BVS it's an atrocity what they did to Superman in that movie. An atrocity. So I'm so happy for this guy.
Yeah,
that he gets to come back.
I agree. I'm with you. Like, it's like we can't judge it because it's like he has not been given the material. And honestly, like we've been pretty vocal on this podcast about our issues with the DC movies thus far, specifically with Zack Snyder's vision. But overall, like, I haven't been a big fan of the Wonder Woman movies. I haven't been a big fan of the Aquaman movies. But you will always see me go easier, at the very least, on these projects where you can tell that the people involved give a shit. And that's why, like, Black Adam, not my cup of tea, but I'm not going to sit here and bash it to death, because there was love put into that project. And there was, and you know what? And there were just elements of it that weren't, I'm not necessarily the audience per se. Like, so I can walk away with saying it wasn't for me, but I respect what they did. And like, I think, and like you know, Henry Cavill put out a little video saying like, I'm back and I promise this is going to be worth the wait. So it's like, how can you not be excited even if you've been burned? Because we've been burned. But when you see somebody who like cares about the thing that you care about, you've got to give them a fair shot. So that's where I stand on all of this, right? Like we've been burned. I'm not quite seeing the evolution I'd like to see, but as long as people are giving it their all, like I can't be mad about it.
Do we think we're going to get some sort of at least a mention or a tease of Black Adam in Shazam Fury of the Gods?
You know what? I'm going to say that now, yes. I think you've literally heard, again, I'm like maybe hyper analyzing the press tour, but he's just been everywhere. Like he was saying, he's like, I pushed all my chips in on this and stuff, right? Well, you just had a massive opening weekend. So my guess is that I wouldn't be surprised if Zachary Levi's heading back to the studio right now to shoot his Black Adam post-credit scene or even a Superman post-credit scene to tie it all together. Like, none of that would surprise me now. Literally, this was because right now, DC, there isn't actually any leadership there.
Walter Hamada, who is a very polarizing figure, is out.
Yeah.
And who was running DC on film is out. And now Dwayne is sort of the direct line to David Zaslav, who's like the CEO of, and they've greenlit all this stuff. And if I've said it once, Kelly, I've said it 100 times. You don't have to be Marvel. Superman, Shazam, and Black Adam, that makes sense. All three superpowered dudes who fly, who would kind of look at the other one and go, and would get involved, right? But let Aquaman do his thing over here. Let Matt Reeves do his thing over here. Another announcement was that the script for a Flash sequel is written and done, and there will be a new actor in the role.
Well,
so they're going to let Ezra Miller. Yeah.
I mean, what that tells me is. So I'm not going to get into Ezra Miller. We all know that our thoughts on that, but just, let's remove that for a second. What that tells me is WB either knows or firmly believes that they have a hit on their hands with that movie.
Yep.
Like they are, because it's like the dude's facing 26 years in prison right now, and they're going to go forward with it. So they are pretty confident that this is a good movie. I mean, I struggle with it. If they're going to move on, recast, okay. I won't comment on the moral dilemmas I'm having there, but, the one thing I'll say is, Dwayne Johnson knows how to make money. All of his movies make money. And
there's he essentially told people 2 weeks ahead of time Henry Cavill's in this
movie.
He
did.
Without saying it. And a huge reason why I'm the perfect example. Was I going to see Black Adam? Yes. Was I going to rush out as soon as I could to see it? No. I would see it in time for us to do this review. But guess what? I went to the first screening I could because I was like, I gotta see where's Henry Cavill? Like, I gotta see it. And that's what's so genius about him. And he's just him and his team of people have sat down and gone, there is a stink all over this. So let's reboot it. Let's soft reboot it a little bit. Let's get Henry Cavill back in. Let's tell people he's going to be in the movie because that will get people excited and want to come see it on opening weekend. And it's just, it's a master stroke in marketing.
Yeah. Well, that's all it is. And to be honest, not to be a cynic here for a second, but let's be honest. This is a business. They don't have to make outstanding movies. They don't. They have to make, they need to crowd please. You do that by having Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as your main guy. Like I said, he didn't give a leading man performance for me, but he gets butts in seats. There is no doubt about that. And then, you heard him and he just said, like, listen to the fans. They want Henry. Get Henry back in here. Who cares? Who cares how we don't need to explain it. Like, he's just here. He's back. Yep. He's back. He's got a curl in his hair. John Williams, let's go, baby. Like, it's just like, yeah.
I kept thinking this last week. You can take the guy out of wrestling, but you can't take wrestling out of the guy. This is professional wrestling 101. It's like, we've got Black Adam and we're going to build Henry up to be a foe for Black Adam, and so where people are going to pay to watch that.
Yeah.
And we've got Zachary Levi, whose first Shazam movie. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I didn't love that movie, but it's fine. It's not a bad movie.
You know what? It's a coherent film. Like,
yes.
I'll give it that.
We've got the comic lore and history between those two characters, and it was the same what do you call it? Like, I don't know anything about Shazam or Black Adam. The same sort of like wizard
was the same
or whatever.
It was the same wizard.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah. Who gave him his who gave Teth Adam his powers.
Yeah.
And so right away you're connecting the dots. I do believe, obviously, we're seeing Viola Davis. So James Gunn's Suicide. This is taking place in the same world as James Gunn's Suicide Squad. So listen, I'm going to give them a thumbs up for, like you said, let's just jump back in. Let's make the right decisions. We don't need to explain things away. We don't need to completely reboot things. Like, let's just say,
yeah, no one cares.
We know those movies were crap, but let's just we're here now. So let's worry about what's going on here.
The other thing that I'll say is like, they're not the only ones doing this, right? Like, so if we're copying the Marvel formula, look what Marvel's doing. They're going, people love Charlie Cox. Let's just bring him back in. People love, like, that works, right? To just say, let's take what's working and give the fans what they want. Like, it doesn't matter. We don't need to be like, well, actually, when we left Daredevil, he was fighting Bullseye, and we need to explain how he got over to have sex with She-Hulk. And but like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, like who cares? Who cares? Who cares? All right, Kelly. Let's give a letter grade to finish this off for Black Adam. I'm going to go with a B, just a straight B for this movie. I think the Justice Society of America make it for me. It's rare that you introduce a team in a movie and you end up loving them, right? Because more often than not, you're trying to catch up. I'll give the writers of this movie credit with that, in the sense that, like, when you're introducing 4 characters at once, that can be overwhelming, and you're kind of like, who's this? Who are you? Whatever. And I thought they did a really good job of being like, here's the 4 members of the Justice Society of America. Here's what they do. They had a nice little cameo there from Henry Winkler, the Fonz, as the original Adam. And so, like, that was a nice touch to sort of give you context about Adam Smasher. So I'm giving it a straight B. Thumbs up for the Justice Society of America.
So I'm looking right now, because obviously a big point of discussion with this movie has been the Rotten Tomatoes score and the battle of critics versus fans. So the Rotten Tomatoes score right now from a critic perspective is 40%. I think that's a little low. You got 90 on the audience score. Obviously, given my review, that's a little high. So I'm going to give this movie a C, which would bring it in at around a 60% based on the Canadian grading system. I will say, can I just say one other nitpick? Just one other nitpick. DC, if you're watching, if you're listening, can we do something a little different with the soundtracks? The Kanye West Power and Painted Black, those are, and they did that in Suicide Squad, like the David Ayer Suicide Squad. Like, it just takes me out of the movie. it just takes me so out of it. So I might have given you a C plus, but I'm sticking with a C because
you know what's confounding about that? You know what's confounding about that from a creative point is I thought the score in this movie, who I've looked up, was written by someone named Lorne Balfe, Balfe, who is a protege of Hans Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the actual score was amazing. And so I'm kind of sitting there going, what? Why would you why are we mixing in, you're right, Paint It Black when we've got such an amazing original score? What are we doing?
I mean, again, like there's part of me that thinks there is a viewer, there are a group of viewers who that would bring them into the movie, right? They know that music. Oh, Black Adam, Paint It Black. Oh, isn't that clever? Like, it's just not for me. It takes me out of it. Yeah, I want I want more focus on the godlike score, but I digress. 60% C. Go see it, sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're going to get out of here. Thanks so much, everybody, for checking us out. If you like what you see, hit that like and subscribe button below. Spread the word. Tell your friends. We really appreciate it. Also, if you're listening to the audio version, leave a 5-star review. Also, written review helps every little bit. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
And tell them the Man in Black sent you.
Tell them the Man in Black sent you.